Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing good. I am, as you can tell by the background, I'm on the road again today, recording my Saturday briefing with you. It is Saturday. It is May the 22nd. I missed last week. We were in the middle of camp meeting, and about this time I was meeting in Kalispell, Montana, with the ministers in that region. I had a great meeting there. I had Brother Doyle Roberts spoke, and Brother Travis Hovde spoke to our guys, and had a wonderful time there while Sanja was meeting with the ladies at the Kalispell Church. And so had her Montana Ladies Retreat. So that was a great weekend, had a great camp meeting. It was such a joy to get together with everybody after such a long time, but since our last one, because of the pandemic and oh my goodness, all that's been going on these last, I guess it's been 2 years since we've had a camp meeting. And so it just kind of raises the level of anticipation for me for the Dakota camp meeting, to get to see all the guys and gals in the same room and worshiping together, fellowshipping together as well. So anyway, that was last weekend. This weekend, we drove down yesterday to come to Aberdeen. I'm in Aberdeen, South Dakota this weekend, miles and miles apart. That's life in the great, amazing NCR. And we came down to support Brother Chris Arndovich and the youth board as they conducted, as far as we can tell, maybe the first ever junior and teen talent in the Church of God to actually have it in South Dakota. We had a competition especially for the young people here in South Dakota. We had it at the beautiful church here we have in Aberdeen, and under Pastor Aaron Malsbury, who's also a youth board member. So he hosted, and his team did a great job, and it was a good crowd there, amazing talent, and it was just it brought a lot of joy to me. It's not so much about the winning or losing. Everybody won, because every church was blessed to see their young people grow and give them a chance to kind of have some team spirit, church spirit, and do something for the Lord meaningful and hone their skills. And so Teen Talent, Junior Talent is a tremendous program that it's a great wheel system that a pastor can use to really disciple and strengthen and inspire his church. And so that was really nice. You'll never find me too far from a coffee cup. But so anyway, we're here, and then we're going to stay over, and Sanja and I are going to go do a little hiking this afternoon, and then meet the Malsburys for dinner tonight. Looking forward to that, and then being with them tomorrow in church. And so this is a special weekend. We love Aberdeen. Don't want to bore you too much with all this, but anyway, I kind of tease them, or not tease them, just affirm them that they're my first love, because we moved in on a Thursday back in early January, the first weekend in 2018 of January. And that weekend we were driving to Aberdeen, South Dakota. They were going through a pastoral change. And so this was the very first church I ever went to in the North Central region. And so it's always got that special place in my heart. But all of you do. I love all of you. Count it a joy to be able to be with you. And so in a way, I can't be with you every Sunday, so this is my way of trying to reach out and stay connected to our pastors and our laity, and then all the many friends and supporters we have around the country. So anyway, well, let me jump in. I want to do a volume 2 today on my sharing with you on great quotes. Back in February, I believe it was, I did my first volume. I'm a big believer in collecting quotes. One statement can change your life forever. One memorable statement, a wise statement, can take you to another whole level. And it's happened to me many times in my life. And so I am an avid gatherer of quotes. When I read books, for years I read hard copies, or real books, and I had a little system of notation that I would keep up with memorable quotes that I wanted to add to my quote file. I even had a lady that volunteered at the church for me for a number of years that would go through my books and do it for me, and then I could just cut and paste them into my file. And now with Kindle, what I do, most of my reading I do through Kindle, and I will highlight it. Sometimes you'll see me tweet a quote or post a quote on my Facebook account. It's because I do it at the same time. You can highlight it and then share it, and you can and I will email it to myself. And then every morning, the first thing I do, this is how serious I am about this. The first thing I do is I cut and paste a few of those quotes out of my email file and add them to my quote file, and I add actually one quote per day, about 350 so quotes. Some days I may miss, very few days I miss, but pretty close to 365 new quotes a year that I add to my quote file. And I have another long list from books that just keep flowing in that I'll add them to. But I'll add them and I'll think about them. Why did I do that? Why is that important? And I'll often make a little note about that. And I usually share it with my son every year as well, keep him an updated copy. And so I'm a big believer in quotes, and I want to encourage. So part of this is just to encourage you to begin to do it. And because let me give you an example, and then I've got 4 quotes for you today. 4 life-changing quotes. I really do believe they'll be an inspiration to you. So hang with me. But think of a word as a snapshot of a concept, and it's frozen in time forever, like the word door, D-O-O-R. Okay, that is, when I said door, that helped your mind to get a picture of something, a concept, and of course, and then you knew everything else that it was not. If I had said light or light bulb, then you would have, that's not a door. And so the door, that word door, is a snapshot of a concept. Oxford Dictionary puts it this way: a door is a hinged, sliding, or revolving barrier at the entrance to a building, room, or vehicle, or in the framework of a cupboard. And so that's pretty sterile and boring. You got to have them. You got to describe that barrier there in front of the house, go through that door. And so, but it's pretty sterile. But you string together several of those snapshots, and you can have a dynamic, what we call a sentence or a quotation. It allows us to communicate. It differentiates us, separates us. It's part of the image of God in us, that we can communicate, that we can turn thoughts into concepts and concepts into material reality. And so words are God's gift to us, especially when we string them together wisely into sentences. And so let me give you an example. And I don't know why this came to me. Maybe there's we all believe in the Holy Spirit. Maybe there's a 2-pronged purpose of this. Maybe you need to hear this today, because actually this is a quote from a song, and you add music to words, and it really ramps it up. You hear these quotes live. That's why you record them. You remember the memory of the experience. But if you hear somebody say something live in that quote, then you remember the background, the emotion behind it, the person that said it. It even means so much more. And so each one of those layers just amplifies the power of words. But let me give you an example of the word door in a sentence. This was back in 1995, late 1995, the first weekend in 1995. I was in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. I had just recently been appointed pastor of the Fort Mill Church of God. I was in a transition time. I had not even gotten there yet. I had not had my first Sunday. I had not moved. So it was that first weekend before I was to go to Fort Mill. And the youth board in South Carolina, back in those days, sponsored a marriage retreat. And so Sanj and I were there. We were kind of in limbo land between the Easley Church and the Fort Mill Church. And so we went there, had all these uncertainties. It was a wonderful move, but it was a lot of responsibility for a young couple. And the Voices of Lee were singing. They sang a song, and it went like this: beyond the open door is a new and fresh anointing. As I read that right there, I got emotional. All that experience. See, this is the good baggage, the luggage that comes with a good sentence. All that comes back to me. It reminds me of this. He says, The words went on, beyond the open door is a new and fresh anointing. Hear the Spirit calling you to go. Walk on through the door, for the Lord will go before you into a greater power you've never known before. And there's other beautiful, powerful words that go with that song. But as they were singing that song, it's like that was God speaking to Sandra. We just looked at each other, and it gave us such a peace. And so that sterile words strung together was a life-changing experience. And every time I hear that song, and I remember in late 2017, I was at an event, and God was troubling my heart and moving in my heart. I was restless. It was just a few weeks before we found out we were coming to the North Central region, and we were in a state of praying, God, what do you want to do with our life? Where are we going? And that song came, and it just gave me courage just to stay focused. God's with me. And so that is the power of quotations. And that's why I want you to be an avid collector of them. And so here's my mission, and this will be in your notes, but my mission is to inspire you to become an avid collector of quotes. Here's a side benefit. This will improve your listening skills. When you're listening to a sermon, a presentation, if you're looking for a quote and you just type it into your phone, and then you can email it to yourself and add it to your list later. That's how I've collected a lot of my quotes. So it helps you to be a more avid listener when you're talking to people or listening to a sermon. And then it will shape, those quotes will shape and transform your life and ministry, for you're always just one idea away from the next level. And so I want to encourage you to be an avid collector of quotations. It makes you a better listener. You're listening to learn. And then when you find the right one, it's a bump, or sometimes it's a push to the next level. It's a life changer, or it feeds your soul. And then when you put them in a list, and the first thing I do, I get my cup of coffee when I start my morning devotions, I start with my quote file, and I will look at usually 10, sometimes 15 to keep myself on level. I have them divided up, how many I've got to do each day to look to get through them all in a year's time. And I go through, and I've got notes and memories from all the different quotes. And so it takes me a few minutes, and it's just so inspiring, because again, all of those memories come back, and the lessons I've learned by looking at those strung together snapshots of concepts that have forever changed my life. So anyway, enough preaching at you today. Let me give you 4 quotes. These came just in the last couple of days. They're all life-changing quotes for me. That's why I put them in there. And so I'm going to give you one that's just kind of funny. This is from my first grandson. My son Lee and his wife Jennifer, their first child, his name's David Lee. We're not real original on our names, I don't guess, at least with the boys. But David Lee, when he was 4 years old, his mother recorded this. Heard him say this, and so I wrote it down. He said, for my 4-year-old, virtually perfect grandson, he said, I just found a booger in my nose. I will put it in my ear to keep it safe. Now, I don't know what in the world he was thinking about putting a booger in his nose, but every year, I would have forgotten that. But every year when I read this, all those memories come back, and I can see my grandson is 11 or 12 now. Gracious, he's growing up. I'm going to see him, Lord willing, in just a couple weeks. First time I've seen him in 2 years, because they've been in South Korea and their time is up, and Lee's getting transferred to another assignment. A little trouble with the pollen this time of the year, so I'm keeping that coffee kind of close by. But just think how many precious memories you lost the snapshot. You lost the picture of it because you didn't write it down. And so there's your good reason just for your family to be an avid collector of quotes. All right. Quote number 2. This is by a guy by the name of Seth Godin. He is one of my most favorite bloggers. I try to read his blog every day. The guy's incredible. He's an author, and I'm not sure if he's a Christian. He doesn't talk about faith, but all truth is God's truth, and he's just a very wise man. And so here's a little quote that really changed my life. And then once you see a concept, then you begin to see it in other places. And I begin to make connections with different books and other guys that I listen to him. But he got me started on this. He said, habits are easier to keep than commitments. Habits are easier to keep than commitments. And this is very important to me as a pastor. The moment you make yourself a leader, whether it's a father, and you say, you promise your children you're going to do something, and then because you overcommitted, there's other things came along, and you disappoint them, you don't keep your commitment, then you've let them down. As a pastor, we make commitments. And a lot of times, the older I get, I really guard commitments that I make, because you're milling around after church or before church, or you get up in the pulpit in a moment of inspiration and you make a commitment. You say, we're going to do this, and then you don't do it. You may forget your commitments, but the people that you committed to do not. And so what he's saying there is, if you can get in the habit of doing things and you just do it because it's just the habit you do, you get systems in place that help you to keep commitments. And so like when I promise somebody I'll make a phone call, I have on my phone, I have a little thing, I type it in, little notes, and I email it to myself. And so I have a habit, a system that I go in place every day, that I look at my emails and I'll say, oh yeah, I need to return that call. And so you develop habits in your life that guard you from not keeping your commitments, that guard you, to make sure you do things that people are counting on you to do on a regular basis. And so it's just my habit. I just do this at this particular time every day, or in this particular order. I call it my game plan. I have a game plan, and I have a place in my game plan where I can insert. If I make a promise, or I talk to somebody on the phone and we talk about something, I say, I'll follow up on that. Well, then I immediately go to my game plan. I have a place to put it in there, and then I have a habit every day of updating my game plan, and I'll have a place and a time, and I can get it all done. So I'm not white knuckling it, trying to hold on. Oh, let me remember that I promise I'd do this on that day, and I promise I'd do that. And we're just trying to remember all this stuff floating around in our head. And what we do, some of it gets away. And so we end up letting people down. We don't call it a lie, but they feel like we've lied to them. We said we would do something and we didn't. And so that was a game changer for me. If I could just make certain things habits, it's just what I do. And then I have a way of inserting commitments into them, and eventually I'll get to that habit, because I do that every day. I do it every Tuesday and every Thursday. I do it every week. I even have alarms on my phone to remind me. That's a system. I don't have to worry. It's just a habit. It just comes up every day at a certain time, and when that alarm goes off, when that alarm goes off, I do this. And so that was a game changer. All right. Quote number 3. This one's a little longer, and it comes from Os Guinness. He's one of my favorite authors. It's not light reading. He doesn't write light stuff, but he writes riveting, life-changing things. So I read. You already have a short list of authors that you read everything they write, and Os Guinness is one. And I got introduced to him through a book called The Call, oddly enough. And I can remember the moment I was in. Of all places, I was in Cleveland, Tennessee. This quote goes all the way back to 2011 as I was reading this book. That's over 10 years ago. As I was reading this book, sitting in a motel room, and I was attending some conference. I was probably on the care board. That's back when I was on the care board. Not the care board, the chaplain's commission board. And I was probably there for a board meeting, and I was reading that book that night, and this quote just really stood out to me. And here it is, a little longer, but I'll have it in your notes. Perhaps you are frustrated by the gap that still remains between your vision and your accomplishments. Or you may be depressed by the pages of your life that are blotched with compromises, failures, betrayals, and sin. You've had your say. Others have had their say, but make no judgments and draw no conclusions until the scaffolding of history is ripped away and you see what it means for God to have his say and made you what you are called to be. First of all, isn't that just powerful, stringing together words? He's a wonderful author, but the concept. And at that particular time, you hit lids in your life and in your ministry, and you feel like you're going along and you're seeing progress, and then you hit a lid. And it's like maybe adversity's coming at you, people are beginning to criticize you, and you just got all this kind of stuff coming at you, and you feel like you've hit a wall. And this is so important to me. There's a few affirmations that I say every day, and one of those is, I will withhold judgment until I have to absolutely make a judgment. I have learned that I shall withhold judgment until a judgment is required. And let God get his last say. Don't jump to quick conclusions. And so that quote has given me so much comfort over the year. Once a year I read it now, and it reminds me, all that comes back. The particular situation I was going through during that particular time over 10 years ago. You know what I can tell you today? I would have forgotten this, but because I wrote it down and I look at it, that snapshot of several words going together that we call a sentence, it takes me back. You know, God did have his say. It all worked out. When Paul said all things work together for the good of them that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose, he was right. Turns out he was right. And I remember that when I read this great quotation from Os Guinness in his book, The Call. I even wrote the page number to page 246. One more quote, and this one I noticed goes all the way back to 2008. And I got some that go back even further than that, but this one was in 2008. And this is by a lady by the name of Jill Briscoe. And I must have been listening, maybe, I don't know, to a tape or something, because I didn't write down the reference. I wished I did. I don't know if it came from a book or a talk or something, but she and her husband, Stuart Briscoe, they're from England, and he pastored a church in Wisconsin, and some of you may remember him. Just a great guy. Has a good book on preaching, if I remember right. It's in my library. They're all stored. My books are all stored up, and I haven't looked at them in several years. But anyway, he really spoke into my life. But his wife also is an excellent speaker, and again, wordsmithing here is so good. When I see a well-written sentence that just packs a big wallop. And this was one that really stuck with me. So October the 18th, 2008, I added this quote. And so she says, "Have I said, woe is me?" Then she goes on, "That practiced gaze of the soul will stop me from saying, wow is me." Now, let me read that to you again. This is just incredible wordsmithing. She said, "Have I said, woe is me? That practiced gaze of the soul will stop me from saying, wow is me." And there is a certain danger, especially for us in the ministry. I mean, every Sunday, we kind of speak for God. I remember walking down the hall one day and hearing two little kids saying, "Wow, there goes God." And it would happen so quick, and I was on my way. I wished I'd have stopped. I thought about that so many times and turned around and corrected them. Like John the Baptist, I am not the Messiah, and he had to repeat that several times. But when people see us, they think of God. They think of high, holy things. And that can become, if we're not careful, we can begin to take ourselves a little too serious. And that just, we can begin to think, wow is me. And our preaching even becomes about getting accolades And it's a bad day, no matter what happened in the orders or happened in the service, it's a bad day if we didn't get enough compliments. And I don't want to become that person. And I remember my dad, when I told him, the first thing my dad told me when I called him and said, "Dad, I've been appointed to Fort Mill Church of God." It was a tremendous move, a great opportunity. 1995, I can take you to the spot, standing there talking to my dad. We didn't have mobile phones back then. I'm standing on the land, talking to him on a landline. The first thing he said, not "Congratulations, I'm proud of you. Wow, way to go, son." First thing he said, "Well, son, I guess I'm going to have to start praying for the Lord to keep you humble." It offended me. What? What did you say? And it kind of offended me at the time, but I didn't realize how wise my dad was. There's been many a guy and gal that shipwrecked their life because that inward gaze of the soul, and they lost touch with "woe is me." But for the mercy of God, God has been so merciful. Woe is me. And as long as you can say "woe is me" with sincerity, it will keep you from saying "wow is me," and you become the kind of person you don't really want to be. So anyway, there's all the way from the profound wisdom of my 4-year-old son to a great woman of God. There's you 4 great quotes, life changers. I hope you'll become an avid collector of quotes, and we may keep this up. I've had a couple of you mention it, how you've enjoyed the first one on quotations. And so anyway, in the email, in your notes, there'll be some happenings and events going on around the region. I will highlight that there's 2 tool conferences that our Church Planning and Revitalization Commission has added. They're going to be doing a tool conference. Brother Travis Hovde will tell us more about this. He's the chairman of our Church Planning and Revitalization team. But we'll have one in Butte, Montana. I think these are in August. I'll have them in there. Then we'll have one in Bismarck, North Dakota, 2 different weekends, a Thursday night and a Friday. And so anyway, especially highlight that. And then, of course, the Dakota Camp meeting coming up in a few weeks. I'm excited to see all of you. But God bless you. Thank you for your prayers, your love, your support. Those of you that are friends of the region, and pastors and ministers and great, amazing Church of God laymen that are so faithful to your church. Sonja, I love you. We count it a privilege to be on the great NCR team. Let's keep running to win and get this thing finished, this great commission that God's given us. Let's get her finished in our lifetime. Love you guys. Let's keep running to win. See you around the bend. Bye-bye.